Hey, what's up, everybody? It's just Charles, and I welcome you guys to another episode of the Dreamerspro Show, where we cover everything from sports, hot topics, classic debates, entertainment, and we give you guys a fresh perspective on things and how we see them. And this episode right here is going to stir up a lot of conversation, but we got to do it. So before we get into it, make sure you go ahead and like the video and subscribe to the channel. Now, listen, I already know this is going to be one of probably our most controversial video that we produced on this channel, but you know, I can't hold myself back from talking about things that I'm thinking about, because I woke up this morning and this is something that I'm thinking about. Although it's going to ruffle some feathers, you know, I still got to say what I have to say because, you know, it needs to be said, and that's what I think. And I got to give you guys my take on this. You know, after watching the first two games of this Boston's versus Nets series, after watching these first two games, it's really beginning to make me question, you know, just how good Kevin Durant can be when he's asked to be the man in the playoffs. As we all know, and we've been told, that Kevin Durant is the greatest scorer of his generation. And I think I was listening to, Speak for Yourself. And I think Emmanuel Acho described an era as 10 years, right? So I think the majority of us would agree that Kevin Durant has probably been the best scorer in the NBA over the last 10 years, right? But as I'm watching him play against this Boston defense, which is a #1 ranked defense, he is struggling mightily. I mean, it's unlike anything I've ever seen from Kevin Durant. If we quickly look at his numbers here, Kevin Durant in the first two games, and I know it's still early, but it's still worth discussing. In the first two games of this series, Kevin Durant is scoring 25 points per game. He's shooting 31.7% from the field. Think about that. 31.7%. He's shooting 28.6%. Think about that. From the three-point line, but he is shooting 88% from the free throw line, and he's getting you what? 4 rebounds and 4 assists, and averaging, think about this, 4 turnovers per game. That is Kevin Durant as we currently speak. And all of this is beginning to make me wonder, wait a minute. Were Kawhi Leonard and LeBron James more dominant when they had to face this type of defense in the playoffs, when they had to go against a #1 ranked defense? So what did I start to do? I started to do some research, because I found it very hard to believe that Kawhi or LeBron would be struggling to score the way that Kevin Durant is struggling to score, when Kevin Durant is arguably the most skilled basketball player in the NBA. So I did some research. And what I found out was this. I found out that LeBron James and Kawhi Leonard were actually way more dominant against #1 ranked defenses in the NBA than Kevin Durant is. So let me start off with LeBron James. Let's start off with LeBron's 2017-2018 Cleveland Cavaliers team. That year, LeBron, I believe in the Eastern Conference Finals, went against a #1 ranked Boston Celtics defense, right? LeBron had to face that team. And let me give you LeBron's numbers that year in the playoffs against that team. I'm going to give you his averages for that series. He was playing 41.1 minutes per game. LeBron was scoring 33.6 points per game, getting you 9 rebounds, 8.4 assists, 1.1 steals, 1.1 blocks. He was shooting, get this, 52.4% from the field. He was shooting 41% from the three-point line. And he was shooting 69.2% from the free throw line. But although he was averaging 5.7 turnovers. LeBron was clearly more dominant against a #1 defensive ranked team. And in that case, that Boston Celtics team, the irony of it is Kyrie Irving was actually a member of that team. It just that he didn't play. So LeBron was actually way more dominant than Kevin Durant. So I decided to look at Kawhi Leonard. I said, let me pull up Kawhi Leonard's stats and let me see how he fared against the #1 ranked defense. Well, in the 2018, let me just make sure I got this right. Yeah. In the 2018-2019 playoffs, Kawhi Leonard was a member of the Toronto Raptors, and in the Eastern Conference Finals, like LeBron James, he went against the #1 ranked defense in the Milwaukee Bucks. So what did Kawhi Leonard average in that series? In that series, going up against Giannis Antetokounmpo, who would defend Kawhi from time to time. Kawhi was still playing 41.3 minutes per game. He was averaging 29.8 points, so basically 30 points per game. He was getting you 9.5 rebounds, 4.3 assists, 2.2 steals, 1 block, only 3.2 turnovers. Now, here's the kicker about Kawhi. While Kawhi was doing that, he was also guarding Giannis Antetokounmpo. He was the primary defender on Giannis. And here's the scary part. When Kawhi was guarding Giannis Antetokounmpo, Giannis shot 11 of 31 from the field, which is basically 35.5% from the field. And in the 131 possessions, and in 101, he did that in the 131 possessions when Kawhi Leonard was the primary defender on him. There is no one on this Boston Celtics team that can play the level of defense that is the caliber of defensive player that Giannis Antetokounmpo was or is on that Milwaukee Bucks team. So how is it possible that Kevin Durant is struggling so much and he's playing with Kyrie Irving? And by the way, let me touch on Kyrie Irving because we put up a poll on our channel. And I noticed that when we're asking who deserves the most blame for the Boston Celtics being down 0-2, the first person that got the most votes was Kevin Durant. Surprisingly, the second person was Steve Nash. Kyrie Irving, I believe, scored 38 points in game 1. Last night, he scored 10 points. Kyrie Irving scored 10 points. I've noticed, and I'm beginning to know, I could be wrong. I think there are a lot of people that want to not give Kyrie. How the hell are y'all going to blame the coach more than Kyrie Irving? Wasn't he? So how is it possible if we're going to give Kyrie Irving all of the credit for them being close in that game 1, we're not going to give him any of the blame for him scoring 10 points in game 2? Should I pull up the box score of what Kyrie Irving and these guys actually did in the playoffs? I mean, in that game yesterday? Should I pull it up? I think I'm going to, because we got to be balanced about this. We can't just throw all of it on Kevin Durant, although he's the focal point of this particular segment that we're producing here. But Kyrie Irving was terrible too. Now, what saved Kevin Durant was, I think he was 18 of 20 from the free throw line. Yes, he was. But if I look at Kyrie Irving was 4 of 13 from the floor. He shot 30.8% from the field. I think it's clear to say that, listen, Kevin Durant, thus far, still early, is not as dominant as maybe some of us thought he was. According to the data, LeBron and Kawhi Leonard are simply better at scoring against tougher teams in the playoffs, teams that have the number 1 ranked defenses. And here's one of the reasons why I believe that's possible. I think KD focused a lot on his abilities and his skills. But KD, if you look at him, he's very skinny. What's happening to KD is this. He is being pushed all over the place. Kevin Durant will get to a spot and they'll push him off his spot. They'll body him. They'll get him off his pivot for they'll force him to put the ball in. Whereas Kawhi Leonard and LeBron James could literally bulldoze their way to the basket. Literally bulldoze their way to the basket. You couldn't force Kawhi to be a jump shooter, although he's a very efficient jump shooter on par with Kevin Durant. But Kawhi could simply just bulldoze his way to the basket. These type of guys could impose their physicality on defenses in a way that Kevin Durant cannot. Kevin Durant is very elusive. He cannot beat you with his physicality. He beats you with his elusiveness and his height, right? He's more of a finesse type of player. Whereas Kawhi and these guys, they can just play bully ball. Kawhi can take you to the post and back you down and score on you. And I think we're starting to see this difference in Kevin Durant's game. And another thing to point out is this. I can't tell you how many times I saw Kevin Durant post the ball the way Kobe would, the way LeBron would, the way Kawhi would. So for as efficient and as spectacular as an offensive player that he is, there are some limitations. And those limitations are, if you play him physically, you put bigger bodies on him. If you crowd his space, you'll be able to influence him. And I've never seen anybody be able to do that to LeBron James or Kawhi Leonard at any point. Certainly when they're playing against number 1 ranked defenses. So to me, listen, I think KD may be getting exposed. It's still early. But this Boston Celtics team is fully capable of beating him. Fully are. So these are my thoughts and opinions. I know it's going to stir up a lot of conversation, but this needs to be said. It needs to be said because it's what I'm thinking. So what I want to know from you guys is, what do you think about the evidence and the cases that I brought in front of you? Whatever you guys think, please leave your thoughts and comments in the comment section. We'll catch you guys on the next episode.